Hi guys, welcome back to episode 2, our vlog Buy in Brisbane. We're really focused on the Brisbane market, we're really excited about it. Got some great feedback after last week's show too in our chat to Cameron Cusher. Gee, that was interesting, Shannon, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely, good response.
Yeah. I'm Kevin Turner, Shannon Davis, and we're your co-hosts on Buy in Brisbane. Our featured guest this week, as we mentioned last week, is going to be Louis Christopher from SQM Research. We'll catch him on Skype in just a few minutes. Always really interesting. Shannon, the SQM people focus very much on distressed properties.
Yeah, and also the demographics of an area, such as weekly family income, ages, and looking at the discounts that are happening with rents and prices.
Yeah, so we'll bring you that interview in just a few moments. Questions, we did a call out last week for questions. We've got a number of them in. Interesting, we've got a question in from Mark. Mark's in Newcastle. Shannon, he was particularly interested in the conversation we had with Cameron last week. Said he'd never really looked at the Brisbane market, but was interested enough to have a look. He was actually thinking about investing in his own area. He wants to know, he's got $650,000 to spend. Where should he be spending it in Brisbane?
Well, look, I'd go to the middle ring suburbs, like one we're featuring today, and look for those 607 blocks, something a little bit larger, perhaps with a post-war house on it, and maybe some development upside to the future as well.
Well, as Shannon mentioned, our feature property, our feature suburb is going to be Chermside West, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Another reminder too that at the end of the show, Shannon always gives us his tip of the week, which we'll get for you. We did a call out last week for agents to send us the property they'd like us to feature. We had a number of agents send us properties that they're currently marketing. Just want to mention that we're not looking for properties that you're currently marketing, we're looking for properties that are sold, because we want to know the result. So if you've got a property that you think was a standout, that achieved a great result, let us know, we'll feature it, we'll feature you as well, Shannon.
Yeah, it's those feature results that really set a new precedent for the suburb or the street and for our market in general.
Okay, so just before we go to our feature guest, Louis Christopher, let's have a look at our feature suburb, which is Chermside West on the north side. Why have you chosen that one, Shannon?
Yeah, Chermside West has a really good owner-occupier percentage. So we're investing in and around a lot of owner-occupiers who improve and renovate and extend their houses more often. Really good schools there. Craig's Lee State School's got a really good reputation, and it wants nothing for shops or transport. It has all those things in spades, good green space, and I think it's a suburb to watch out for.
Yeah, and I like it too because we live very close to Chermside West. So there you go. And let's have a look at our chat now with Louis Christopher from SQM Research. Louis, how does Queensland fare in the distressed property stakes?
Well, Kevin, I got to say that historically, there's one area in Queensland in particular that's always had fairly elevated account of distressed properties, and that's the Gold Coast. I've noticed this right throughout time that we tend to see an elevated level of distressed real estate on the Gold Coast, and I've never been too sure why that has been the case, whether it's investors overstretching themselves, whether it's people who just suddenly run out of money and they have to sell quick. I'd like to hear that from you, what you think the reason is, but it's definitely been the Gold Coast. Brisbane itself, no, Brisbane's never had an issue really with distressed properties. It's pretty much in line with all other capital cities. But the Gold Coast, yeah, that's been an issue for a long time.
Yeah, I reckon a lot of people turn up to the Gold Coast and, while they're walking around licking their ice creams, they're probably thinking, oh, well, this is a good place to buy a holiday place and then I can rent it out. Maybe they stretch themselves a bit too much.
It could be that, and look, we've always known the Gold Coast has been a little bit of a transient place as well. Yeah. There's more movement of people coming in and out. That may well have something to do with it too. But yeah, whenever you log on to our distressed properties report, the Gold Coast always is up there in terms of the count of distressed properties.
So, Louis, in a period of low interest rates, Australia's signed on to record household debt. Are we already seeing a rise in mortgage defaults? And if so, where?
Yeah, look, good question. There has been a little bit of a rise in mortgage defaults from very low levels. So default rates around the country are running at about 0.5%, which is up from, I think, about 0.4 as the all-time low. Now, to give you some perspective, back in the recession of 1990-91, default rates got up to effectively 7%. we're way off those levels. And I note that the housing bears are sort of jumping up and down. There's been a slight uptrend, but in the scheme of things, it's still at very, very low levels. That said, though, I got to say that we are concerned about the fact that if we were to see, for example, a 2% rise in interest rates, I think you would see default rates start to really pick up, and mortgage stress would pick up with it as well. The reality is that with these historically low interest rates we've had for some years now, people have been taking out debt to their eyeballs to buy homes. And so, in my view, the economy can no longer withstand, say, a Reserve Bank cash rate of 6%. I don't think it could handle it anymore. It'd be more along the lines of a new normal being circa a 3% cash rate, meaning the average lending rate would be, say, along the lines of 6.5%. I think that's all the economy could withstand at this point.
Hey Louis, just keen to get your thoughts on days on market, your analysis of days on market, say for Queensland. How does Queensland stack up against the other states, and what messages are you seeing there?
Queensland overall is having longer days on market than, say, New South Wales and Victoria. And if we focus in on, say, the capital cities, Brisbane's running at circa 120 odd days, whereas Sydney runs at about circa 70 to 80 days, and Melbourne's been running at about 60 odd days on our numbers. So Brisbane's definitely higher. If we were to strip out the actual units, then would see days of market in Brisbane fall. So it's the oversupply in the unit market which is creating elevated days of market. We were looking at the freestanding houses. Brisbane days of market would definitely be less.
Yeah, it's quite hot, the housing market with the middle ring suburbs, definitely.
I would agree with that. Brisbane freestanding houses, but there's been strong demand. Relatively, look, it's not, I wouldn't say it's overly tight supply, but it's a firmer market.
Louis, tell me, have you seen an emerging trend of, say, long-term rentals being lost to short-term, such as Airbnb?
Yeah, we're getting quite concerned about the whole Airbnb scenario. Look, we understand Airbnb's got like circa 40,000 short-term listings. Now, there is no question there would have been landlords who have moved over to Airbnb from being longer-term accommodation landlords. And I think that has taken rental stock out of the marketplace, longer-term rental stock out of the marketplace. What we would like to do as a research house is actually monitor Airbnb and then track those properties back to whether they were once long-term rental stays. So that's a piece of research we'd like to do in the next 6 months. I think that would be very telling, but I do believe that Airbnb are having an impact upon the rental market.
Yeah, we'll follow that with interest, Louis. Hey, Louis, just moving away from Brisbane for a moment, are the regions in Queensland showing signs of improvement, do you think?
Yes, look, we're noticing some improvement in far north Queensland in particular. So Cairns has come out of its slump, which lasted for some years. We believe the housing market's now steadied. We're seeing lower stock on market, lower vacancy rates. I wouldn't say we're seeing a boom in house prices. No way. We're not seeing what we're saying here is, hey, the housing market stopped falling up there now, and there's a little bit more demand, which is good. Some of the towns and mining-related towns, such as Gladstone, it appears finally that they're out of their commodity slump, and the housing market has bottomed. I'm cautious in saying that because Gladstone had a bit of a false dawn back in 2014. It looked like the market was coming out of its slump then. It didn't. Vacancy rates went all the way back up to 9%, and prices fell. But this time around, it does seem as though the market has finally bottomed out in Gladstone, which is great for existing property owners. On the Sunshine Coast, the market's definitely been moving up in line with the Gold Coast. So I'd say the Gold Coast has outperformed the Sunshine Coast. And one interesting anomaly is that historically, Brisbane has generally been the longer-term outperformer compared to the Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast. They generally run in alignment with each other. that normally you see in previous cycles, you know, the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast having sort of bigger busts or waiting until Brisbane moves first. But this time around, it's been the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast which have been outperforming Brisbane over the past 4 to 5 years now.
Yeah, maybe some southern investors buying lifestyle properties, maybe.
Well, we must recall that back in that 2010 to 2012 housing downturn, I mean, the Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast, they were hit hard. Those regions were hit really hard. I remember the southern end of the Gold Coast in properties which were selling at half their resale price that they'd sold, say, 12 months prior. I mean, that area was smashed big time. But yeah, it's bottomed out, and they were, you know, back in 2013, 2014, 2015, there was good value to be had on the Gold Coast with the downturn being over. Now we're coming up to, of course, the Commonwealth Games. The market's moved up. There's been more building approvals been coming through. So I think post the Games, it's going to be an interesting time. I'm not in agreement with some I've seen saying, oh, the Gold Coast is going to run really hard after the Games. I don't see that happening. The normal tendency is you see a housing market slow down. I don't think, though, this time around the Gold Coast is going to be hit hard post the Games. I think there may well be a slowdown, but it's unlikely to be an absolute rout.
Yep.
Wow, Shannon, somewhat sobering report there from Louis, but he always makes some really good comment, I think.
Oh yeah, his interpretation of the data and how he collects and presents it's a real godsend for people like us.
Yeah, you and I were talking off camera about Louis, and you made the comment, quite a good one too, that when everyone was saying that the Sydney market had peaked, he said, no guys, it's got a way to go yet. And I think a lot of us thought, well, hang on, Louis, surely it can't. But he was right.
Yeah, he was spot on, definitely. And it just goes to show that he's one of the leading property commentators in the country.
Yeah. Okay, so before we leave, your tip for the week, mate.
I treat your investing like a business. I think Louis got it spot on there where he said if you've got a tenant in the apartment market that's a little bit saturated, the best result is to keep your tenants. So don't try and be bullish and force increases and have a big period of vacancy and likely be rented out at less than what you're currently receiving.
And that's it for this week. Thank you for being with us. Those questions, keep them coming in. We love to hear your comment about the show. If you've got any segments you'd like us to include in the show, we'd love to hear about it. Just send me an email, kevin@realestatetalk.com.au. Make sure you subscribe, that way we can tell you what's coming up in the shows as well. As we said, the shows come out every Monday, and we'd like to keep you in touch with what's going on. If you're an agent, another shout out for you. If you've got a property that's been sold recently and you've got a great price for it, or you had a tremendous reaction, you think it might be a barometer for us, please let us know. Shannon, great to catch up again. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
And we'll see you again next week too, right here at Buy in Brisbane.